That's it. It's official. Congress is certifying Donald Trump's election victory. As you guys know, this is not necessarily something that people were aware of that the American government does until the Republicans decided this was a pivotal moment to strike and potentially change the trajectory of American democracy. What is this? Oh no, it's happening again. Just keep this video to bait some views.
To the Capitol, but those police are gone. I don't see anyone. When we were coming up on the other side, from the west side of the Capitol, we saw a van
oh my God.
and a group of almost like National Guardsmen, and they were running into
oh
the
my
building.
God,
As
they're
they were
storming?
the building,
Liberals are storming the Capitol?
Cheering at them, yelling, that not to
Oh
forget
my
their
God.
oath, that they made an oath to this country. I mean, really harassing these the National Guardsmen who were running into the building. And so it turned.
Oh my God, they're doing it again. No, I'm just kidding. All right. I was the only protester outside Congress. Where was everyone? Let's be real. Let's keep it a $1.50. Okay? Let's be really real. Liberals are not resisting the Trump administration. They're not. Liberals are too busy, both in the halls of Congress and outside, clapping at the normalization of Donald Trump and the Republican Party, and also simultaneously celebrating how good they are at normalizing people like Trump. Okay, look at Lindy Lee. I hate libs so much. I mean, Lindy Lee is like one of the sweatiest and grossest operatives out there. So that's not even, she's like uniquely bad. But my point is we're done. It's over. The American Reich is here. Okay, some might say it's always been here. America KKK style. Mao standard English speakers rejoice. You were right all along. But that's kind of where we're at. That's where we're at. And I mean, look at the liberals celebrating how wonderful they are, celebrating how they preserve these institutions, unlike the silly Republicans. Meanwhile, they're certifying Donald Trump,
Of the House and Senate are gathering in what is there, and there is the Speaker Mike Johnson and Vice President Kamala Harris. It's obviously a bipartisan or even nonpartisan event where the leaders of this country come together to count the electoral votes. There's Ted Cruz, a senator from Texas, who was one of the main individuals who helped cause what happened 4 years ago by putting forward the falsehood that the vice president could somehow do something to stop the electoral count. There's Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries with Catherine Clark, his number two. What are your thoughts as you watch this in action, Caitlin?
Ted Cruz obviously was the first senator to object. And obviously, just looking back on this, what the vice president maintained at the time, as Mark knows well, was that he did not have the power to block the certification on this day 4 years ago.
And he didn't.
What we have seen is the Electoral Count Act that was passed reaffirming that interpretation of the law. So people like John Eastman, who Pence later referred to as a crackpot of attorneys that Trump was listening to at the time, could not make that argument. But also it changed the threshold for how many people have to object to lead to that moment. So even if we were in the exact same situation as 4 years ago, had this law been passed, the threshold would have had to been much higher than what it was 4 years ago for that to actually happen.
Let's listen in. Vice President Harris is calling for order.
Congress, pursuant to the Constitution and laws of the United States, the Senate and House of Representatives are meeting in joint session to...
I'll be honest, it does kind of feel like maybe they didn't think Donald Trump was Hitler. This doesn't reflect my opinion on the matter. But it kind of feels like they didn't have any issues with Donald Trump's policies, and they certainly didn't have any issues with Donald Trump either. Okay? And they don't have an issue with the Republican Party either. They went from this is not normal to maybe this should be normal, and this way it'll be fine. And for the record, it's really interesting because you see media coverage on Trump's inauguration. And a lot of people in the media are talking about how crazy it is that Google and Facebook and Jeff Bezos, they're all giving millions of dollars to Trump's inauguration funds. And it's not that weird if the elites have decided this is the way. if the elites have decided that Trump is just the Republican Party, and this is just how the Republicans are, and we just got to play ball with the Republicans, okay, then yeah, it's not newsworthy, or it wouldn't have been newsworthy in the same way if, I don't know, companies gave money to the George W. Bush inauguration. To me, it just shows that everyone in America is ready to play ball. All of our elites are ready to play ball. Trump, Teflon Don, he did the dang thing. He did it. He knew that he would face legal scrutiny, chose to fight against it by running for office again, successfully won the election, and now we're in his court. And the Democrats are, I think, totally willing to stand back and stand by. What is this? Jesus Christ, I've been giving money to this man for 29 months. Is today when they certify President Musk? Yes.
Verify the certificates and count the votes of the electors of the several states for President and Vice President of the United States. After ascertainment has been had that the certificates are authentic and correct in form, the tellers will count and make a list of the votes cast by the electors of the several states. The tellers on the part of the two houses will take their places at the clerk's desk.
You know, I just think it's so important to reflect on what we are seeing right now. We talked at the beginning about this complex being.
I want to know what Blue Anon is going to do now. Because I thought Blue Anon was talking about how Mamala is going to stop the steal. So as the admiral of the Blue Anon Brigades, West Coast Division General, I am at a loss for words here. I'm a little confused. I thought that we were supposed to wait for orders from Kamala Harris. I am the Blue Anon shaman. And as the Blue Anon shaman, I thought this was our opportunity to strike. Kamala was going to not certify. She knew something was up. I thought that the SpaceX had changed out the vote tabulations and that Kamala was going to strike while the iron was hot. What's happening? And as the leader of the West Coast Kamala Brigades, I've decided perhaps that they actually infiltrated Kamala, killed her, put her in a CIA black site because she was fighting against the deep state. And this is a clone. That's right. I think Kamala is a clone. Meanwhile, this is liberal January 6th. A crowd of hundreds, if not 1,000, showed up to Meridian Hill, Malcolm X Park, for today's community snow fight in D.C. There it is. Liberal January 6th is happening. And what's funny is they'll also talk about how like sweet it is. Like they'll talk about how great it is that, like, you know, look at us. We're adults, unlike those Republicans. Remember, and there's truth to that. Yes, liberals will not throw their hands up and try to resist or do something about the situation. But then they'll also say, look at that. That's actually a virtue. It's actually a virtue that we are not even resisting the Trump administration after we said he was a Nazi. I still think he is, for the record. Only time will show how much of a Nazi he is, but
Being fortified. But it's being fortified
Objection.
despite the fact that this is peaceful.
Objection. The tellers will dispense with reading formal portions of the certificates. After ascertaining that the certificates are regular in form and authentic, the tellers will announce the votes cast by the electors.
A liberal insurrection would have looked very different. We would have escorted the original Broadway cast of Hamilton into the galleries. They would softly sing "History Has Its Eyes on You" as members of the GOP spewed their lies. Yeah, we would do woke gender as well. We would also only tactically snap. Okay, I say we because remember, I am the Blue Anon Brigadier. Okay, we would also snap, no clapping, just snapping. Guava Shaper, thank you for the 10 community gifted subs. Okay, we would do gender. We would do woke gender. Okay, Broadway musical, jazz hands. We would do a land acknowledgement after the insurrection or before the insurrection. Okay? Just remember, we have to do a land acknowledgement first and foremost. We'd have to put marginalized people on a single file line, put them in the front lines, you know, and of course, mandatory drag.
For each state, beginning with Alabama.
President, the certificate of the electoral vote of the state of Alabama seems to be regular in form and authentic, and it appears therefrom that Donald J. Trump
and then the end of the insurrection would be ensuring that we secure enough funds to give to Israel. Another $8 billion to Israel, to be exact, which is what Joe Biden is doing. We would cherish that, and we would celebrate him for doing that.
The state of Florida received 9 votes for president, and J.D. Vance of the state of Ohio received 9 votes for vice president. Madam President, the certificate of the electoral
basically what's happening right now, the
vote of
tellers
state of California
alternate reporting on the
seems to be
authenticity
regular in
and
form
the
I think it's so funny. This is yet another testament to the reality that Donald Trump has dramatically changed American norms, American institutions, American politics, and reshaped it in his own image. Nobody before January 6, 2021 ever cared about January 6th. That was not like a media moment. But because he tried to overthrow American democracy in the funniest way possible, now this is also a unique moment where, see, the American Congress has gotten together to certify the vote counts. It's like, this is just purely symbolic. This is the type of thing that like nobody really cared about. It's just super basic stuff in Congress that happens that you normally are supposed to not even know about. No one needs to know that this is a thing. No one is supposed to watch this in real time.
proper form of each of the certificates and the number of votes designated for president and vice president, and then each teller records the results.
This is no, it's not even PBS material. This is C-SPAN. This gets in the past, this got like 35 views on C-SPAN.
On a paper tally
It does
sheet.
seem boring. It is
And
boring.
at the end of that,
Look at them.
reading all results.
They're describing the process of vote certification. Like what? Of course it's boring. It's so stupid. It's like putting a camera. It's like putting a camera in front of a guy who's just like literally rubber stamping stuff at the FDA every day or something. Like it's just like what? It is incredibly boring procedural stuff. And I think part of the reason why we're hyper focusing on this is to basically repeat a lie that things are normal. Okay. That's it. Things are not normal. And things are not normal. But everyone, the fourth estate, is desperately trying to be like, no. I promise you things are normal. Look at how normal this bureaucratic process is. Everything is fine. Please don't freak out. Meanwhile, Justin Trudeau, in America's hat, Canada, resigned. Part of the reason why he resigned is because he was deeply unpopular. Okay. Part of the reason why he was deeply unpopular played a role in the same struggles that Americans are facing as well, where a lot of people have decided that immigrants are the reason why the housing market is out of control. People will point to the carbon tax, or the taxing initiatives that he engaged in for green energy, even though it's an objectively conservative way of trying to tackle climate change. America's other ally, South Korea, experienced a martial law initiative. The president was deposed, and now they're going after him, but they can't even issue an arrest warrant because he's protecting himself with his own Secret Service. America's not saying anything about that either because it's weird. You have war everywhere. The things are just not normal. Things are not normal at all. And it seems like leadership at the helm is more invested in maintaining neoliberalism as the maintaining neoliberalism as the way to go. This like ideological zealotry rather than try to actually fix some of these problems, and people are getting more and more frustrated, and right-wingers are just winning. They're winning all over. They're winning all over the world where people have not changed. People have not changed their politics at all on the opposing side to fascism. If you have liberals running the show, you're in a really terrible predicament. All the while, we just hyper focus on silly things like this to be like, no, everything is fine, everything is good. Meanwhile, what is Trump doing? While this is happening, Trump is, on the other hand, consistently saying, oh, we're just going to annex Canada. Now, I think he's joking about that. I don't think he's being serious about that. But I do think it's dangerous and nefarious when he talks about invading Mexico or bombing the cartels. I do think that that is something that he might do. I don't think he's joking about that. But as it stands, I fear as though we will just keep looking at things like this to be like, no, everything is fine. Everything is normal.
From all 50 states and D.C., the tellers then compare the results on their 4 tally sheets and all sign all 4 tally sheets. Then the vice president announces the result totals and announces the election of president and vice president. So they are going to be reading through each 50 state and the District of Columbia.
Madam
Results
President,
from Ohio there, obviously the
electoral vote of the state
for
of
J.D.
Oklahoma
Vance. Back with the team here in New York as we continue to watch what is going on to the counting of the ballot from each of the states. Congressman, you were there 4 years ago. Is it odd watching this?
It is. Well, the funny thing is, we were kind of talking offline here. I was present for 12, 16, and then 20, obviously that thing. And usually, this is a non-event. I mean, I would go, kind of show up, they'd open the session, half the time I'd go back to my office because you don't even need to be on the floor. And this is over in an hour. And that's how it should be. This is great that it's happening this way. But for me, it's surreal because my attention on what January 6th is obviously has been colored by what January 6th was 4 years ago. That I forgot how quick this actually happens and how really perfunctory it actually is. So this is a good thing today. Again, the new incoming president will make the decision whether he wants to move on from January 6th or not. I'm fine whatever he decides. I think the country would be better off if he did. But yeah, it's good to see this happen today.
Do you think January 6th, years from now, is a date that will live in infamy?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. January 6th is like, at this point, I think it's 100 9/11s, I think. Worse than 9/11 times 100. Obviously, no one cares about January 6th. Who cares? Let the man overthrow the government in peace. Leave him alone. He is doing that right now, by the way. Ironically enough, he is kind of doing that. So if your argument against Donald Trump is that he destroys institutions because you're a norms respecter and institution defender, then yeah, you're very frustrated about January 6, 2021, and you're not frustrated about January 6, 2025. That's the point. This is exactly what I'm trying to explain to you. Okay? Liberals don't like January 6, 2021 because that destroys institutional norms, because they only care about preserving institutional norms. They don't care about losing to Donald Trump gracefully, graciously, and, falling on the sword like this. That's it.
They use the phrase used for other events. I'm not comparing it at all to
I think we live in split screen America. I think for some of the country it will, and it'll be remembered. I think otherwise it'll fall to the history books. And the reality is this. Most of the country did care. It rubbed them the wrong way. They didn't like it. That showed up consistently in polling, but it just didn't rank in the top issues at the end of the day. And I think this was such a historic and wild election cycle, and so many other dynamics entered the last 4 years that in many ways the events of January 6th were eclipsed. And there's a certain privilege involved. I acknowledge it with myself in being able to say, well, I'm a voter against January 6th. I'm voting this way because that day crossed the boundaries for me. But if you feel like the cost of living is too high, the border hasn't been secure, groceries cost too much, and you think that a different candidate, you think Donald Trump's better on that, then
you know that January 6th is what caused Putin to invade Ukraine, right? It also gave Netanyahu the permission structure to do Israeli expansion on Gaza. So yeah, it easily, and now Lebanon and now Syria. So yeah, it's easily worse than 9/11. What? What? Yeah, that's what happened. Oh my God.
That's who you're going to vote for. And
Okay, I think we've seen enough. Okay, we've seen enough.
The peaceful.
Yeah, breaking news. Kamala Harris announces she will oversee the certification of the 2024 election. And she's going to do it. She's going to do it gracefully.
Transfer of power is one of the most fundamental principles of American democracy. As much as any other principle, it is what distinguishes our system of government from monarchy or tyranny.
Yeah, breaking news. Elected official is going to do her job. Yeah. Breaking news. Breaking news. Tomorrow, Kamala Harris is also going to sign off, she's still going to continue overseeing the Senate. Breaking news. As the vice president, this is her duty. Breaking news. On January 20th, they will hand over the reins of the government to Donald Trump's administration. Breaking news. Yeah, I know. This is how it is. This is how it goes.
Today at the United States Capitol, I will perform my constitutional duty as Vice President of the United States to certify the results of the 2024 election. This duty is a sacred obligation, one I will uphold, guided by love of country, loyalty to our Constitution, and my unwavering faith in the American people. As we have seen, our democracy can be fragile, and it is up to then each one of us.
This kind of attitude is so funny because they make it seem as though the Republicans, if given the opportunity, wouldn't do a million January 6s over and over again. Hey, we're leading by example. See, this is how you really do it. And if you're engaging in this pageantry of a normal piece of the process, normal bureaucracy, as though this is a valuable lesson to instill upon the American public, make no mistake, they do not care. Your enemies do not care. Well, I guess your Republicans aren't really her enemies, if we're being real, or the Democratic Party's enemies, but they are the enemy of the American people. I'm just going to repeat this over and over again in perpetuity. Institution respecters and norm defenders, when they lose to the Republican Party, end up also failing on both fronts because the Republicans will never defend the institutions or the norms. They only care about getting their way.
To stand up for our most cherished principles and to make sure that in America, our government always remains of the people, by the people, and for the people. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
That's right. Oh my God. You are grossly underestimating Kamala 2028. I am telling you right now, Kamala Harris's political career is done. Okay? It is done. It is Jover.